All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Again, this is a branding refresh technical visit that is provided by Main Street, Wisconsin, for Main Street, Marshfield, and I am Ben Muldrow with Arnett Muldrow and Associates. I'm joined by Joe Lonizak with Main Street, Wisconsin, and Jay Schlensog with Downtown Professionals Network. For those of you who did not get to meet me this week, as I said, my name is Ben Muldrow. I am a partner with Arnett Muldrow and Associates, and have had the privilege of working with Jay as a contributor to Reopen Main Street, a founder of Proud Places, and also Downtown Happy Hour. So I love everything that has to do with downtowns and main streets. And I am thrilled to share with you what we came up with this week. So, start with what we learned, and this is just kind of a brief overview of some of the background information that we dug into. I like to look at some of our demographics, population, poverty rate, median household incomes, median property values, and then we like to dig a little bit deeper into this. We use a website called datausa.io that allows us to drill into the jobs that exist in the community. It's kind of a cool way of seeing it. So this graphically portrays all of the job sectors in the community. I think it's no surprise that 29% of the jobs in the community are healthcare and social assistance. This is probably one of the largest single sector delineations I've seen in a community. So obviously we all know that is part of the biggest thing. Whenever you talk about branding in Marshfield, you are dealing with that dynamic of the community of Marshfield always flies underneath Marshfield Clinic. Marshfield Clinic is like a brand that is well known, and it kind of carries forth. I mean, thank goodness it carries a lot of positivity, and obviously it brings a lot of people into the community, but that just kind of reinforces what we know about the place. But then this next slide actually shows us a little bit about the breakdown of the job types. So a lot more diversified in the different skill sets and different kinds of jobs that you have in the community. So this is a pretty good diverse job core. And these are based off 2018 numbers, which are pretty much the most up-to-date that we can get into. The next thing that we like to look at is, I like to look a little bit at what's called inflow-outflow. This comes from the Census Bureau. And every day you have almost 5,000 people who call Marshfield home who also work here in Marshfield. Every day you've got about 4,300 that leave town to go to work. And you have 13,800 people that drive into Marshfield every day. So when you sit there and you look at your population number, your daytime population is about 10,000 more than that. So being able to capture those employees while they're here, being able to position downtown as both an experience core and really kind of creating a connection to place is very, very important to us. Now, to drill a little bit deeper into some of these numbers, we like to dig into these radar maps, where what this actually shows us is this shows us the direction and distance that the employees come from and the place that the out commuters go to. So if you take a look at these, the one on the right-hand side, this is the employees that are coming in to work in Marshfield. So pretty diverse. The thing that I notice about this is the lighter the color, the farther people drive. You actually have almost 50% of your employees are at least 25 miles away. And 30% of your employees are 50 miles or greater. So that's a pretty heavy commute of folks coming in. What that means is if they're driving that far to come into work, they have a long commute home, and therefore Marshfield provides them some of the greatest retail opportunities, because by the time they get to wherever they live, a lot of their businesses will be closed. So further reinforcement of the relationship between the community and the employee base is really important. Now, as you can see on the left-hand side, this is where your residents drive to go to work. A lot darker. You see how those colors are a lot more concentration of the darker colors. That means your residents are not having to drive as far to get to their jobs. The people who are going the farthest are going southeast. Well, what's southeast? I mean, the major centers. So I think that all kind of makes sense, but I think it's always good to be able to connect those dots and realize that these recommendations need to be based off of a sound understanding of how your market works. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So then from there, I always like to take some photos and kind of share what we saw. Obviously, weather over the past 24 hours has not been the greatest. So, but just going through, being able to spend some time in some of the businesses, you've got a really strong surge in some new business and some cool business. We did some very, very in-depth research at Mojo yesterday for lunch. Wanted to make sure that we knew what we were talking about, right? So, and being able to share some of those experiences. And then also, I think one of the other things that is really interesting is, the architecture in your district is amazing. The details, when you take the time to really get out and explore and hunt for the details, it is truly, truly stunning. And you've got some great examples of kind of deco period. You also have some really interesting kind of mid-century stuff that's blending in. So I really, really liked some of that for our inspiration. Now, from there, we like to take a look at the existing tools. Now, everybody is familiar with the fact that the CVB recently led a community rebranding effort that they launched in January of 2020. Now, we've got the city logo. The city logo has been around for quite a while. To say it is ingrained would be an understatement. It's literally integrated in all of your wayfinding signage. It's literally cast in stone in your streetscape. So, this is a logo that it was in existence when I was here 15 years ago, and it is still going strong today. Now, one of the things that I do think is important for us to make a note of is, as they went through the branding process and they created this Marshfield Made New brand, they then opened up that brand for brand extension to the partner organizations. So Visit Marshfield adopted it, Chamber and Chamber Foundation all adopted it, and they rolled it out into some of their initiatives like Recharge Marshfield. Now, what that means is when they created that destination brand, they then turned and slightly blurred the lines by allowing organizations to adopt both the brand mark and tagline to represent their organizations as well. So what we immediately wanted to do was we wanted to play nice with this system because there are some really good components to this, but we also didn't want to fall into this look and feel of everybody looking exactly alike. So we pretty quickly identified that the colors made sense to play off of and the typeface made sense to play off of. But one of the other things that we really picked up on was this upward slant in the letters. That is a gesture that, because it was adopted by the destination and then the organizations, I really feel like that needs to be something that they own. So I'm not really showing that a whole lot. There are a couple initiatives that, or a couple little design elements that I did design that incorporated it. The reason I did is because they are more initiatives that are community-wide instead of downtown specific. So you'll see how that kind of comes together. And let's see who that is. Ann, I'm going to let Ann in too. Hey Ann, thanks for joining us. So then from there, we look at your system itself. And I will give you some serious props for stick-withedness, that you allowed this to stick around for 15 years. you know, as the person who designed it, I give you all permission to both make fun of it and to unceremoniously send it on its way. You know, we've learned a lot in 15 years, and this is not the easiest system to work with. So we are very, very happy that you learned the power of consistency, and we're also really, really glad to send this one to the pasture. So we're gonna kind of send that on its way. But I will say, you know, in looking at this, one of the components that we identified back then, and I still think is very true, is there is a tendency in this community to love to slap a locomotive on things. And we were very much trying to avoid this slapping a train on everything. And that is why we created that kind of stylized train wheel that was also the marsh grass, that was also the kind of connection to the idea of the hub city. So I think the big thing that still is an important concept is some stylistic ways to portray the hub city without having to have a locomotive on everything. So I think that's kind of where we're at. And then as we continue to kind of look through stuff, you know, there are a couple out there that are just really good. I got some serious love for Dairy Fest. You know, legendary. That's perfect. I love the way that you did the 40th with the 40 tag, ear tag. But then also just some of the private sector stuff like Hotel Marshfield, you know, very, very well done. So you have to factor all of those in to your recommendations. So then that leads us into the toolkit. So with the brand toolkit, what we like to do is we like to identify color palette, we like to identify typefaces, and then we like to identify a general approach to graphics and design so that we can create a true connected system. So again, we wanted to start with the color palette that was developed during the community brand. But I will say, when you have a color palette that includes 10 colors, that's a pretty big system. So what I tried to do was kind of follow what I called the design anthropology. You know, you have the system designed, but then you see the way that it gets implemented. So this 10 color system simplified down to 3 colors in the Visit website. And that's kind of the dark, rich, kind of steely blue, the lighter blue, and the orange. And they even modified the colors that they used from the colors on this chart. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to have a good dark base, and I leaned on the dark blue for that. And then I always like to have a 4-color palette for a Main Street organization to connect in with the 4 points. So I stuck with the light blue and the orange, and I introduced a gold and a green. And we were talking with some folks earlier. One of the nice things about that is when you hit blues and you hit oranges, you're hitting both high schools as well. So you're not turning your back on any of that inherent local pride. And that's a good thing to do. So your system kind of simplifies down to 5 colors like this. For those of you in the room, don't trust anything on the screen because those colors aren't right. So you can see they're a lot more palatable on the laptop screen. Those of you at home, you probably are seeing a little bit truer. Now, from the color palette, we wanted to look at the typefaces. So the primary typeface used by the Made New system is called Sequel. And Sequel is a really nice sans serif typeface. One of the beautiful things about that decision was it has a very narrow horizontal scaling. And what that means is the letters aren't really wide. Well, Marshfield is a really long name. So by selecting a typeface with a narrow horizontal scaling, you're able to get more height with your word. So that's a really good choice, and I did like it. I think that it fits very well. We then selected a hand-lettered secondary typeface, which we've now changed. So it's no longer permanent marker. It's called Manus, and you'll see how that looks here in just a little bit. But you got to be adaptable, right? So we're sticking with a pretty simple system for you. Now, I will tell you that when I give you um, the final brand materials later this week, I am going to throw in one more complementary typeface that will help to kind of fill the gaps. There is a problem with SQL. And the problem with SQL is, for some reason, the typeface does not have numbers. So every time I tried to write numbers with it, there are no numbers, and it defaulted back to whatever the default typeface is. So I have a very, very similar typeface that I'm going to give you just in case. It's called Trim, but I think all in all, the connectivity is worth it for that slight complication. So then what we start to look at is, this is what downtown Marshfield looks like in that typeface. We start to get this dynamic of, okay, like we get that vertical height. It gives us this opportunity to have a little bit of size difference, so it draws you in. I think a lot of times people want to make everything the same size. They'd want to make downtown as big as it can be, and then the two words compete a little and it becomes hard. So I think that you'll see how this system kind of comes together. So all of this leads into what we call the destination brand. So let's tie this all together, okay? We've got this community that, on a community level, you're talking about all the new things that are happening, but our downtown is the heart and soul. This is the origin story. This is the place where the community started. This is where your history is relived and interpreted. And this is also where the community comes to gather, with all of the things we heard about 2nd Street and connecting the ballparks to downtown, and with the development of the new, outdoor water park way down Central. Like, you've got this energy that's happening all through the community, and it is the spine. It is the center of the community. And but there is truly energy here. So we brought all that together, and we wanted to give you a stylized monogram and just something that was really clean and simple and easy to use. And we landed on this: Downtown Marshfield, Old Soul, New Spirit. And this idea of Old Soul, New Spirit, it gives us that way to have that kind of subtle nod, reusing the word new. It gives us that opportunity to both highlight our history while also talking about the new energy, new business, and kind of hitting on a little bit of that idea that we talked about yesterday, that downtown's constantly changing. So if you haven't been here lately, you haven't been here. And that's a really important concept for us. Props to Joe. I turned one of his he actually did a absolutely stunning full block facade illustration. That's probably several years old, isn't it? But it's just a really, really stunning piece that kind of captures the character of what could be. So with that, when we start to look at the system, we start to see that, we have these different versions. We've got a reversed out version. We've got a regular version. We've got horizontal. We've got nice icons that can be used in social media. We have simplified stacked versions. So because of the simplicity of the design, you have a lot of different variation in there. And I think one of the biggest things that the mistake that we make is, we design a logo that looks pretty, and I'm guilty of it. It's exactly what I did to you 15 years ago. I created a logo that there's only one version. So it's like, what happens when it needs to be small? What happens when we don't have horizontal space? So now, because of this design, you have all those different variations that all build into the system. You've got this kind of look and feel that is established on the visit standpoint, with some textures and repeated lines and slashes and things like that. You can incorporate some of that look and feel. And again, this is very much intended to be, it is a destination brand for all of downtown. It is a gift to the business community. It is something that you use in partnership with other organizations. And this is the thing that helps you to build equity in your downtown district. But then from there, it opens up the door for, well, what about Main Street? Because essentially, you never really had a downtown logo. You only had a Main Street logo. So up until this point, everything we're introducing is kind of new tools for you. But we still want to drive that organizational awareness of Main Street and what you do. So with that, we go back to that idea of the hub. We go back to that idea of that kind of circular, well-rounded icon with components and movement. And so I just created a really simple approach that kind of brings that in, gives you a stylized icon, and gives you that opportunity to kind of connect these dots per se. Major props to your photos and images as your header photo in Facebook. This is really, really nice. You're not used to seeing, I'm not used to seeing something that captures character quite that way. So good job on that. But then showing how this kind of turns into a system, you have those 4 colors to represent those 4 points. You introduce this simplified version like we talked about yesterday, powered by Main Street. This becomes that bug that you can throw down on the corner of posters and the way to just connect everything that you're doing. So you start to see this kind of expandable system that allows you once again to have the right outfit for the right conversation. And because of the simplicity of the design, it gives you a lot of different legs. I like to show how it might work in some of your kind of professional correspondence. So I redesigned business card, and so this kind of shows what a business card design might look like. But then something else that I really, really like doing is these cards that you see on the bottom. I call them impact cards. And one of the biggest things that we do is we don't necessarily drive home the true passion and support that our board members have for our district. So you can go through and you can print a stack of these blank cards, print them on uncoated paper so you can write on them, and give a stack to every one of your board members. So as they shop downtown, as they go and eat downtown, every single time they're just starting to leave these cards behind. And it amplifies the impact of how much you love the place. This is I can be honest, this is probably the most impactful $100 you can spend. Buy a big stack of these things and just start telling people how much you love downtown. So be fun with what you say on there. Be a little cheeky. It's okay to be funny, and have some personality there. But then the next thing that we talked about as well was once you have this simple icon system, you can start to own these very, very simple concepts. Rediscover downtown, explore local, and then that idea of it's new every day. You're starting to plant these seeds that this is a district that's ever changing. And that's a really, really, really important thing for us to hammer home. That fact that the place is always evolving, that's the emotion that will motivate our locals to rediscover it. They have to feel like they're being left out of something cool. I mean, I don't know if y'all are like this, but I sure know that my wife is. There are these parties that people throw, and she does not like who throws them. Yet she's offended that she doesn't get invited. She doesn't want to go to the party. She just wants to know that she was invited. And it's that sense of being left out. And she will drive by that house during that party. And I mean, it's so being able to figure out that way that you can kind of motivate that person who thinks they know everything already to put the effort in to rediscover. Now from there, the next recommendation or next couple recommendations come off of some of Bryce's comments yesterday about some of the things that design committee is starting to look at. And if you were with us yesterday, you'll remember I threw out the idea of a public art master plan. This is a planning process that allows you to start to think very strategically about public art location. So when we talk about public art, a lot of times we like to jump straight into, ooh, we should do a mural of this, or we should have a sculpture of that. A public art master plan thinks strategically about the locations and using public art to help people to better experience the place. So I wanted to brand this, and what I came up with was what I call Arts Field. and just kind of setting the stage for this collection of public art. I mean, there's really no community better that, you understand the impact of public art in the community. And with downtown Jurassic Park Trail and that kind of thing that's been kind of thrown through there, I think that you've got a lot of really good things going. But then Bryce threw out some great ideas yesterday that I think if you can package an idea and kind of get people around it, one of the things that he said was, hey, can we wrap junction boxes? So there you have Arts Junction. And you start creating some energy around wrapping those junction boxes with public art. We talked a good bit about 2nd Street and getting people that are at the fields to walk downtown. So I'm just throwing a bunch of stuff at you for that. A play off of the 7th inning stretch and the idea of kind of terming this kind of this pathway, the 2nd Street stretch. The idea, one of the things I threw out as we were walking yesterday was, wouldn't it be amazing if you utilized banners as a children's art gallery and had children's art running up and down 2nd Street, so you actually motivate these parents to walk the street. So kind of playing off of that next iteration of the Star Walk, and I called that Art Swing Gallery Walk. And even just this simple idea of home field advantage, this play off of the terminology to work in your favor. Something else that Bryce said was talking about painting crosswalks. Love that. So going through and what we call cross with color and starting to promote the idea of both selecting the strategic crosswalks that need the treatment and then thinking through all the different ways that you might be able to incorporate different stories or different kinds of art, different things into that installation. I think that goes a long way. From there, we jump into the event extension. Now, this was fun. You guys put on a lot of events. I will kind of say, whenever I come up with as many events as you guys have, I like to always throw a little bit of caution. Don't burn yourself out. Give yourself permission to either pause or kill events that aren't working, and make sure that you understand where those events fit into the overall strategic event calendar, and make sure that they are performing the functions that you want them to perform for your district. I think a lot of times we do things and we don't necessarily know why. And that's not just you. That is a Main Street thing. Like we'll put on an event and then we'll do it a couple years and it'll iterate each year. And then next thing you know, it's like, why are we doing this? It kills our volunteers. It makes us no money, and it irritates our business owners. Like, we're probably not doing what we should be. So, I want to run through some of these. I want to start with one that I absolutely did not touch. And that is the brand system for Cabin Fever Run. This is absolutely stunning. The artist out of Milwaukee that worked with you all on this deserves a major award. She is really good, and this system is phenomenal. So, I wanted to start here because I wanted to simply say to you, when you have a good thing, you don't have to go and erase brand systems that you've had just to make them, quote, fit. The thing that you're going to start to realize is the way that you make things fit is simply by having them be high quality. So when you already possess something that's ultra high quality, it is fine to let that be part of your brand. But I loved this. This was truly, truly a treat to look through this. Both the thoughtfulness and just all the different components that were created. I loved, the way that you transitioned that idea of Wisconsin's always in season, and just a really, really nice way to kind of capture the personality of that event. Now, before I go into some of the other events, I want to throw out another idea, and this is more community-wide. But one of the things I did not see, and if it does exist, I apologize, but I looked for it and I couldn't find it, was what we call a made-in brand. When you have a tagline like made new, one of the things that I would expect is a made-in brand. So having some sort of way to highlight and spotlight the amazing products and whether we're talking about coffee that gets roasted, whether we're talking about things that get manufactured, highlighting the things that are made in Marshfield. So I just put together a little logo for the Made in Marshfield brand, and this could be made fresh daily, roasted fresh daily, like anything that you're doing can be highlighted into this concept. And in downtown in particular, this is a concept that can grow some serious legs. So, those cupcakes that are baked every day, like this, baked fresh daily, made fresh daily, constantly changing, new flavors, come explore, like it all is tied in together. So then from there, kind of quickly, Halloweek. I love Halloweek. These are fun to do. These are just cute, like, being able to kind of tie those in. But how amazing is it to have a beer walk during Halloweek? So, showing what that could look like. And again, you're starting to see with the typeface, with the colors, we're able to create connectivity between the brands without having every single thing look exactly alike, because a Halloween trick-or-treat probably needs to look a little bit different than a beer walk. Or maybe not. Maybe you're onto something amazing if they look alike. Farmers market is a big event for you guys, so showing how you can kind of incorporate that and create something that ties in with that. I loved Reindeer Day and Holiday Parade. So again, kind of showing how you can start to pull those in together. If you notice on the Holiday Parade logo, I actually took the rosette, doubled it, and rotated it to create a wreath. So it's just like it's two of your logos on top of each other. It's kind of cool. You've got some great holiday events, like the Holiday Wine Walk. So again, kind of bringing those things in and creating this look and feel. Now, I will say I tried to be mindful on the Holiday Wine Walk, because you've got an interesting dynamic where there's also a downtown wine walk that you don't necessarily do, I guess. That's United Way, but you partner with. So, I wanted to make sure that we were very, very clear that this is our event. And, you might run support for downtown wine walk, but, it's different. So I tried to be good with knowing the differences between those events. Then obviously you have Hub City Days. The old Hub City Days the logo looks like it's kind of hung around for a while, but it also looks like the systems have kind of evolved over time. And it seems like as you've marketed the event, it has erred on the side of being a little cleaner. So I wanted to kind of honor what I felt like I was seeing in the marketing. So I created an updated version of Hub City Days, kind of playing off of that railroad connection that seems to be really heavy with that. I did a super slight update to the recently created Brewfest logo so that we could use the same colors and same typeface. And if you're going to have a locomotive coming straight at you and it's going to be for a Brewfest, like, put that beer cap on that boiler. Like, that's the only way to do it. But you start to see these systems grow and evolve, creating some simplified variations down along the bottom, like Hub City Classics and Hub City Hoops. So once you have that simple system in play, adding and growing becomes really, really easy. Oh, goodness. So from there, we go and we start to look at brand extension. This is where the brand makes its way into merchandise, whether we're talking about like reusable shopping bags, whether we're talking about merchandise, hats, shirts. Look at that, Joe. You can get that. I know we need those, don't we? And then I always like to illustrate this idea of what we call brand co-oping. There are certain brands that carry with them inherent quality. And a lot of times when we make branded merchandise, the place that we start is trying to find the cheapest possible product. Because for some reason, we're convinced that the branded merchandise is not going to carry a value. So we need to find the cheapest shirt, the one that feels like sandpaper. Or we need to find the most plasticky mug, or, the crappiest water bottle. And, when your brand becomes associated with a crappy product, then it brings down your brand. When you couple your brand with a quality established product, then now all of a sudden it's like, okay, you're transferring some of that known value into the place that might be unknown. Um, I'll never forget the first time that my daughter asked me for a hydro flask, and she asked me literally. It was like, you know, she asked me the same way it would be like, Dad, will you buy me a car? You know, it's like, well, I don't. I mean, it's a bottle. You know, like what? Oh, it's a $70 bottle. Oh, okay. And so it has like fairies in it that magically keep your water cold. But you know, being able to find those ways that you can kind of integrate that stuff into the system. You know, I gave Vicky a sneak peek, and she made sure to point out that she would never serve coffee with plastic cup lids. So I'm totally on board with that. But again, like finding those creative ways that you can partner with establishing businesses, giving these tools to the businesses to be able to kind of take this and run with it. From there, I took a look at signage and collateral. So one of the big things was we wanted to create a branded version of Jay's old school, very tried and true vacancy signage. This building's not empty, it's full of opportunity. So we kind of pulled one of those designs into that, and then had the Powered by Main Street on that. We talked yesterday about what we call guerrilla wayfinding signage. So I wanted to put together what that might look like for you, with a series of these signs that could be incorporated into your trails and could be intended to drive people down perpendiculars and really kind of maximizing that impact throughout the district. Wanted to set the stage for what might become either an ongoing, I kind of see this as a digital resource, but I'm calling it Rediscover Local Marketing Guide. So this is more focused on helping our businesses to understand some marketing best practices. How can they market their business downtown? And this is everything from making sure that you are on social media, making sure that product spills out onto the sidewalk, making sure that you understand how to run a sale the right. Like there's so much that this can really be. But I designed this to be digital. I don't think that this is the kind of thing that you need to worry about trying to print. I think it's an ever-growing, ever-evolving resource. But then from there, I also wanted to take a stab at a shopping and dining guide. And I felt like y'all deserve something a little cooler than the typical like 8.5 by 11 trifold shopping and dining guide. So because everything is really kind of square, because of all the work with, you know, the plaza and this kind of building of a community square, I actually designed this to be a 6-inch by 6-inch square piece, which is a kind of cool size. Small enough to carry around, easy enough to distribute, and honestly, we're not going to be handing these out on tourism racks. So these are the kind of the things that you would be either sharing digitally or kind of handing out. But what you can do with these is you want to design these with a dominant visual on the front so that as you change them year over year, it's a quick realization that this is new and updated. But then on the inside of these, you know, being able to highlight some of the look, and that's actually a dish from Mojo, being able to kind of highlight some of the images and flavors and just the businesses that exist. So you're starting to create this really nice, and I will say, like, I would lean towards this being more of a digital delivery so that you can design it to be beautiful. And, you know, if somebody's looking at it on their phone, let's be honest. I mean, shopping and dining guides are important, but people are using Google a lot more. So being able to have a digital resource that reinforces is probably our most important way to kind of tackle that. So then that carries us to kind of the final section, which is the brand implementation. So, you know, I've showed you a bunch of stuff today, which is, it's all well and good, but it's like, how do we use it and what do we do with it and how do we make it work? So we're going to be giving you a comprehensive style guide. This document will identify all the colors, all the typefaces, show you how to use it, how not to use it. It will detail all of the resources that are in the digital delivery package. So it'll be easy for you to take it and run with it. Then from there, these were some of the questions that Danielle had yesterday. We've got a implementation checklist broken down into 3 phases based off, most of it is based off budget and the way that it typically takes communities to be able to roll stuff out. But literally on one page, you'll have everything you need to think about with comprehensive brand rollout. Then we have this how to be a brand partner. This is a piece that is intended to be shared with other organizations, especially our event organizers and our downtown businesses. And it's just a brainstorming sheet. These are all the things you could think about potentially doing with this access to this brand system. There's also what we call brand score sheet that's custom tailored for Main Street organizations. This will allow Kaylee to go through and self-score your own implementation and identify what makes sense to be next. The points are based off of importance, not cost. So believe it or not, you can get the same number of points having your brand on a gateway sign, which costs $25,000, as you get for updating the logo on your Facebook profile, which costs no money and takes a minute. So we try to get you thinking about how to tackle this in the right way. Then from there, we're also sharing with you a strategic event calendar worksheet. This is something that's great for our promotion committee. Go through, write down every event that you have in the month that it appears. It gives you a category to classify that event. Is this a retail promotion? Is this an image building event? Or is this a special event? And then it has a category of, does this event communicate to our business owners? Or do we need to communicate to our business owners? Do we need to communicate to donors for this event? How do we need to communicate to the public? Do we need to communicate to volunteers? And do we need to pass on and communicate to the government? So it gives you this opportunity to start thinking really, really strategically about the events that you have and the functions that they perform. And then finally, we have put together a communication channel inventory for you to think a little bit about, okay, these are the different channels we're using. This is how frequently we're using. This is who we're using them to communicate to. So hopefully it can help you to just kind of get your head wrapped around the best way to make all of that work. So with that, that's what I was able to put together. I'm going to stop sharing here, and I would love to hear from you guys, anybody here or anybody on the call, what your thoughts are. Does that make sense? Do you feel like we're moving in the right direction?
I think those look fantastic.
Awesome.
Am I really echoing?
Not on our end.
Just to you, not to us.
Okay. I think they look really, really good. My question is,